So Jim McElwain has a ton of pressure on him, leading one of the elite programs in college football, coming off a couple disappointing seasons. He's the guy in charge. He's won a couple football games, and typically a coach in that situation will tell you, hey, any way we can win, I'm happy. Let's just get the W and build the program and see progress every week. Jim McElwain was anything but happy following last night's 31-24 win over East Carolina. We bring in David Waters to break down the Gators. David, it's interesting because that sideline tirade from Jim McElwain, especially the one in the face of Kelvin Taylor, is going to be the one that most college football fans are going to see. That's going to be the kind of the statement from that game. So can you kind of take us through McElwain's displeasure, because it seemed to come from undisciplined play, but also undisciplined character issues displayed off the field or on the field after action?
Oh, correct. And it's it probably leads back to, he's probably seen a lot of negative that come from the Will Muschamp era, and he probably sees that as the main focus to really, getting ahead of this team and change. We saw for years under Muschamp and actually under Meyer, for a long time, Florida's been near the bottom in the SEC and the nation in penalties. And, I'm pretty sure he's just tired of seeing that. And last week, Florida only had one penalty in the game, and then a week later to turn around and have 12 penalties, I think it was. And, a lot of them were, unforced and unnecessary. Kelvin Taylor does the throat slash toward the camera, and we all know by now that's going to get called every time you do it. These referees don't play around with that. With that little gesture. And another one was a player taking his helmet off before he come off the field. There's things those players know that is not really going to be accepted anymore. And like you said, you mentioned after Taylor got back on the sideline, the cameras captured McElwain and really just going off. And you could probably read some lips there, but as of this morning, there was a fan video that actually captured quite the audio as well, and you could hear the F-bombs and stuff. But I kind of harp it in a way that's coaching, and we see it all the time. It's at the high school level, it's at the college level, it's at the NFL, and we see it. And I think it was just a culmination of the game was probably a lot tighter than it should have been. McElwain was probably frustrated there, and then to get that silly penalty, and I kind of think he probably just really wanted to make an example and trying to change the culture at Florida a little bit.
Hey, if a coach is able to keep his language in check wherever he is, hey, I think that's amazing. That's great. And there are certainly coaches out there. But I think when a coach is on the sideline, that's the inner sanctum. That's almost like the locker room. And if that audio gets caught and that coach is dropping F-bombs or any kind of language, I have no issue with it in regards to, I think that even though he's in a public arena, that should be considered private area with him and his coaching staff and the players. So if that audio gets caught, I think that's a shame. And unfortunately, everybody's got a camera in their hands. Everybody's got audio devices that they can instantly transmit to the world. And that's the day and age in which we find ourselves. So right, David, if we, what's that?
I'll mention that Kelvin Taylor jumped in this morning on Twitter and, quote, I love Coach Mac. He's going to make me a better person. Got nothing but respect for him. And there was a lot of media members who blew up and said McElwain was unprofessional and, not much has changed. He looked like Muschamp on the sideline last night. But, for Kelvin Taylor to come out publicly and address his feelings about it, I think was a step in the right direction for the program as well.
Oh, I think that's great, too. If the player admits his mistake and is able to show public respect for the coach after he's been publicly ripped into, and he's able to be a man about it, not take offense to it, and turn around and give respect to the coach, I think that's a very positive sign. I think it's also a right move of McElwain to, if he comes into the program and he sees some of these issues, to address it as soon as possible and get that out of the way and show that this is the way we're going to run the program from here on out. So in terms of the play on the field, David, we came into the season thinking this is a team with not quarterback issues, but question marks at quarterback. Offensive line, probable issue. Defense should be one of the 5 or 6 better defenses in the SEC, although there are some spots where it's a little bit thin. So just your assessment of the play all the way across the board against East Carolina.
Yes, you brought it up first with the quarterbacks. I really thought, McElwain made the right move, going with Grier, letting him get a chance to start the game this week. Kind of started off slow, but then he found a groove. But I kind of got, kind of questioned, I'm not a coach, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I am. But, I kind of questioned McElwain's, Grier finally got in a groove. And when he did, Florida got a turnover. Florida was in the red zone. And I think, he should have let Grier probably build off of that a little bit, but in come Treon Harris. It was probably pre-planned, but I think that's, where you go and kind of go with the hot hand a little bit. He threw Harris in, and Florida had to settle for a field goal. I think Grier probably would have liked the chance, to start in the red zone, maybe had one more chance to, build off the momentum that he already had. And that's probably one thing I questioned McElwain about. I think the play calling kind of got a little bit stale as well last night. It kind of got predictable in a way. I'm not sure if, he's really holding anything back for when conference play starts. I don't really believe in that, so I don't kind of think that's what was going on, but maybe so. I think the worry for me, the offensive line, the offensive line, the run blocking is just non-existent right now. And I really thought it would be the pass blocking that gave, the offensive line problems, but it doesn't really seem to be the case. There's more the run blocking. There's no running lanes there. Kelvin Taylor, Jordan Cronkite, Jordan Scarlett are, really having to make do with what they get. They're kind of making the moves for the yards. There's a couple of times their offensive line can do it, but these teams that they're playing now are nowhere near what they're going to face coming up. And if they're having trouble opening lanes against East Carolina and New Mexico State, there's no telling what's going to happen when they play Kentucky, Tennessee, Ole Miss coming up. And that's something that's really going to have to get fixed going in. And I'll switch to the other side of defense. I mean, we knew Florida's defense was good last year, and this East Carolina offense gave them trouble in the bowl game. It must just be a system that, of course, last night Florida was missing Vernon Hargreaves. He got injured in practice last Thursday. Didn't seem to be too serious. He still participated in warm-ups last night, but they pretty much thought it was best to keep him out of the game. So, defense was without their best player, without their leader, got down quickly 7-0, and kind of, held strong until about the third quarter, and let East Carolina come back a little bit, and just East Carolina had really no problems passing the ball against that Florida secondary. So, that's going to have to be addressed, but who knows without Hargreaves on the field, the mindset of them going in there.
David Waters joining us. You see, if you're watching the video and not listening to the audio podcast, you see the Gator apparel behind David. So he's a huge Gators fan, knows the program, knows the SEC just about as well as anybody around. Has written for a number of platforms, most recently Fansided. So we bring on David to get us straight on Florida football and obviously the SEC upcoming. So David, I have not done my homework. I got to admit, don't even have my phone in my hand to look up who do the Gators have next.
Kentucky next week. Kentucky's coming off that win against South Carolina. They had to hang on for dear life there. But after last year, Kentucky felt like they should have beat Florida, and now coming off a win against South Carolina, Kentucky, that Commonwealth Stadium is going to be rocking in Jim McElwain's first road game. It's his first SEC game in general, and it's his first road game as a Gator head coach. So it's pretty much going to be walking into a very hostile environment. Florida's going to have to play much better than they did last night if they want to come out of there with a win, I think. Get some of these issues corrected. What happened last night against East Carolina, a lot of those issues are easily correctable. But, for years we saw those mistakes under Muschamp, and they never did get corrected. So, maybe these players just need to learn. How long will it take them to learn? That's probably the biggest question right now.
So, David, you mentioned the controversial finish from last year. Kentucky's able to beat South Carolina this past weekend. I think we would agree that between Florida, South Carolina, Kentucky, jury's still out on Tennessee and Mizzou to a certain extent. A lot of people are really high on the Volunteers. They blew a game against Oklahoma, but facing one of the top 20 teams in the country, outplayed them most of the game. But those teams are so close in regards to talent and experience. It's going to be key who wins the games and can get to postseason play. So can you give me a little look on Kentucky just in regards to your thoughts on the Wildcats? They've recruited extremely well under Mark Stoops over the past couple of years, bringing in some top 20 recruiting classes. So just your thoughts about Patrick Towles and the Cats.
I really think this kind of offense they're playing this year kind of is more in that kind of air raid style that Florida just had trouble with East Carolina. So it will be interesting to see how much Kentucky tries to test out Florida secondary. From all, accounts and purposes, from what we could tell last night, Vernon Hargrave should be back next week. But I really think, the test for me, I really think, is going to be how Florida offense goes against that defensive line of Kentucky. Like you said, the recruiting has stepped up. They got playmakers on that defensive line, and like I said, the Florida offensive line still, hasn't shown that there can be, can take the next step. We still have to figure out also, will McElwain name a starter this week? Will he go with Will Grier or Treon Harris? Will he let them split again? Most people thought by going into the SEC play against Kentucky, he would probably name a starter the week of. So, we don't have any indication of what he's going to do there yet. So, he's going to be taking a young quarterback in to, like I said, a hostile environment. And that's, if I had to pick right now, I probably would pick, Kentucky to probably pull out. I haven't seen enough from Florida yet to think they can go into a hostile environment and come out of there with a W.
And the schedule is just about as tough as it is for any team in the Eastern Conference, in the Eastern Division of the SEC. When you look at the crossover games with LSU and Ole Miss, and then of course having to finish off with Florida State out of conference. So this is a game that the Gators really need to get, you would think, to get themselves enough wins to get to postseason play. All right, David Waters joining us to break down the Gators. David, thanks so much for joining us as always.
Thanks, Mark.